The assassin.
You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest. You know I break necks, call me Jack Tate. I have no regrets while your life is fading. I'm a crazy fuck equivalent to Satan. When I'm behind the mic, I feel like the greatest.
What up, y'all? You're listening to Sports Talk with Tropp, and I'm your host, Katie Tropp. Well, what an insane weekend of football we had. This weekend was most certainly the second half meltdown. That was definitely the theme of multiple games throughout this weekend, starting with Saturday's games. Yes, so we had 3 games on Saturday, beginning with probably it is technically the biggest blowout or comeback in NFL history. So it was the Indianapolis Colts at the Minnesota Vikings. It was a very shocking start to this game. It was like complete and utter domination by the Colts. It was just the most random thing. They were getting turnovers. They were just scoring on offense. They were just getting in great field position and just scoring and scoring and scoring. And they had a 33-0 lead going into halftime. So this was looking like a complete and utter blowout. And it looked like this was just going nowhere. This was looking like, the typical Kirk Cousins primetime game, because, on the Saturday games, each game that was played was the only game on at that time. And usually Kirk Cousins has a terrible game in those games. But in this one, he and the Vikings ended up turning it on, and they got it going in the second half. And they actually ended up tying the game at 36. So we went into overtime, and the Minnesota Vikings completed the comeback. They ended up kicking a field goal and getting the win 39-36. It was literally the biggest comeback in NFL history. Kirk Cousins, he actually didn't have a terrible game. He did have one horrible interception in the beginning of in the first half. But other than that, dude had a pretty good game. He went 34 for 54 with 460 yards and 4 touchdowns. His receiver of choice this day was KJ Osborne, who had 10 receptions, 157 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then, of course, Dalvin Cook, who actually had one of the biggest plays of the day, where he ended up. I think it was the game-tying touchdown. I believe it was the game-tying touchdown. I mean, this was from Saturday, and it was the first game, but I'm pretty sure it was the game-tying touchdown where, he just made it look easy. This dude's got motherfuckers just hanging off of him, and there was no way Vikings were going to score on this down, and they did. And so Dalvin Cook, he had 17 carries for 95 yards, also a receiving touchdown. But that was one of the most insane games I've ever seen. Did not expect to see that happen. It's hilarious now because Matt Ryan, the quarterback of the Colts, he was involved in Super Bowl 51, the greatest collapse of all time, in that Super Bowl when he played for the Falcons. And now that he's with the Colts, he is now involved in the greatest collapse in regular season history. So congratulations to you, Matty Not So Ice, I guess is what we should call you. I don't know who dubbed him with the nickname of Matty Ice, but we'll just say that has never fit the bill for his career because he's won absolutely nothing. And now he's tied to 2 of the biggest comeback wins, and he was on the losing side of both of those. So congratulations to the Vikings because that is a huge comeback win. I mean, being down 33-0 at halftime, if I was a fan of the Vikings, I wouldn't have been feeling so hot, and a lot of the crowd was still there, and good on them for staying for that because they got to see a great comeback in the end. Then the second game on Saturday was the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. This was an extremely forgettable game. I barely remember what happens in this game, other than the Browns did get the win 13-3. It was a mostly defensive game. Deshaun Kutson still looks like shit, so that's pretty hilarious. He did finally have his first touchdown. That was the only touchdown scored of the day. J.K. Dobbins, he came back for the Ravens at running back, not this week, but the week before, and he had yet another great game. In this one, he had 13 carries for 125 yards, but obviously there was no scoring going on for the Ravens just because no Lamar Jackson, and this offense is going to struggle because Dobbins, he is an excellent running back, and he can obviously carry the load, but they did not get the win this week. And the Browns didn't even play that great either. They played good on defense, but offensively, they are just not good. So, yeah, just another boring-ass game from the Ravens and the Browns. Then the nightcap on Saturday was the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. This ended up being a spectacular game. It was close the whole way throughout. It was kind of funny, too, because, before the game began, during all the pregame and all the other games, they were showing how much snow was in Buffalo. I think it snowed like 8 inches or something on the actual field, so they had the whole day to clean it up. And then it was pretty much clear for the majority of the game up until the fourth quarter. And I feel like that's really where Buffalo won this because like I said, it was a close game. Buffalo had control for the majority of the time except for about the third quarter. The third quarter was really when the Dolphins actually started to get it going. And it looked like they might make it a game, but then Buffalo was like, nope, we got this. And it was crazy, too, because once it started snowing in the fourth quarter, it wasn't just like bullshit snow. It was like real legit snow. Usually you don't pass it in those in the snow because, it's more difficult to grip the ball. It's wet and all that. Well, Josh Allen makes that shit look easy. All the passes that dude was throwing in the snow while it was snowing, the ball was still coming out all nice, beautiful, and clean. So dude's just an excellent quarterback. He went 25 for 40, 304 yards and 4 touchdowns in a Bills win, 32-29. Raheem Mostert, he had a good game for the Dolphins, 17 carries, 136 yards. Jalen Waddle actually had a really good game as well, 3 receptions, 114 yards and 1 touchdown. Tyreek Hill also had a good game. I mean, really overall, the Dolphins had a pretty solid game. It's just Tua doesn't really seem like he's that great of a quarterback. He can just toss up the ball for the most part, but he still seems pretty rattled these last couple of games. He's really just kind of fallen off of the face of the earth. It was nice to see the Dolphins finally get back to their ground attack because they definitely need that. But the Bills were just able to not easily, but they were able to put away the Dolphins and maintain their dominance of the division. Then moving on to Sunday's games, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Carolina Panthers. This was a pretty close game. The Steelers did end up getting the win 24-16. Sam Darnold went 14 for 23, 225 yards, 1 touchdown. Najee Harris for the Steelers had a good game, 24 carries, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Deontay Johnson for the Pittsburgh Steelers at wide receiver. He had 10 receptions, 98 yards. It was really just a really solid game from the Steelers and not that great of a game for the Panthers. I mean, they're both 2 teams that really they're not playing for much. I mean, the Panthers do have the potential to get into the playoffs, but I don't know. Especially after what they showed in this game. Not too much. The Steelers were actually shockingly in control for the majority of it, and that's not really anything to brag about because they are an awful offense. So not a good day for the Panthers. Also, speaking of not a good day, my Dallas Cowboys were at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they had a really nice, solid lead. They were actually up 17-0 at one point. And then it just looked like everything was rolling in the first half. They were looking good, offense, defense, and then all of a sudden the second half started. And, give it up to Jacksonville. They played excellent on defense. They really locked it down. And then offensively, they just looked really solid. They were able to bounce back from the couple of turnovers that they had. And Trevor Lawrence, man, he just is getting better each and every week. He went 27 for 42, 318 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But yeah, the Jaguars ended up mounting a comeback and would send it into overtime. And then, unfortunately, overtime would end with a Dak Prescott interception that would get returned for a touchdown. It's always hilarious when the Cowboys lose, especially like this, just because Cowboys Nation, they get all in such a tizzy, and it's like, yo, we haven't even lost 2 games in a row this season. We're actually playing pretty well. The Jaguars aren't that great of a team, but they're actually surging right now. We didn't get our asses kicked. We actually didn't have a lot of penalties in that game. It's just the Jaguars stepped it up. I don't think the Cowboys were ready for that. And it was still a close game. And hey, we still clinched the playoff spot anyways. So, and this whole notion that we need to put Cooper Rush back in, that's ridiculous. Yes, Dak threw those 2 interceptions. The first one was horrible. I hated the first one he had, I think, was like in the 3rd quarter. And it was like on a 2nd and 18. And they were they were like at the 15-yard line. And then he just throws it right to the Jaguars and sets them up in great field position to score. The second one was more on the receiver. But at the same time, I really don't think the pass would have been completed anyways. A lot of people are also questioning this, the 3rd and 10 call in the 4th quarter, because we really did luck out because the defense, they faded out in the second half. They started out pretty well, and then the second half, they really just let it go. So we were able to get Trevor Lawrence to fumble. We got the ball back. And then we were able to get the Jaguars to spend 2 of their timeouts, and then it's 3rd and 10. I'm sorry, with the way the defense was playing, I actually don't blame Mike McCarthy for passing it on that rather than running it and having them waste the timeout, because you never know how shit would turn out. Regardless, didn't turn out in the Cowboys' favor. Cowboys fans are just crying like big old babies, and it's like, there's really no fucking need to get upset. We're still doing all right this season. There is literally no team right now that's actually running away with anything at this current point in time. Every team's lost to pretty much a shitty team. I haven't even got to the Kansas City Texans game yet. But, I mean, really, chill out. You could start crying when the playoffs hit and we lose then. That's when you start crying, not right now. Still outlook good. We're going to the playoffs. Who the fuck cares? We lost to Jacksonville. Write it off and on to the next one. Then we had the Philadelphia Eagles at the Chicago Bears. And, speaking of teams that barely got by, the Eagles barely got by the shitty-ass Bears, man. The Eagles won 25-20. And there was actually a point where the Bears actually had the lead at certain points in this game. Jalen Hurts, he threw a couple interceptions, but he did have 3 rushing touchdowns, so he definitely made up for those 2 interceptions. And Justin Fields, he had another phenomenal day as well. He had 95 yards rushing on the ground. A.J. Brown, dude, had 9 receptions and 181 yards for the Eagles. So the Eagles, yeah, they had a pretty solid game. They got the win, but I don't hear anybody bitching and going, oh my God, they barely got by the Bears. And it's like, the Bears are fucking 3-11. Cowboys stomped the Bears into oblivion, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying, man. Eagles, yeah, they're 13-1. Oh, by the way, breaking news today, Jalen Hurts actually injured his shoulder in that game. They really haven't announced the severity of it. It sounds like it's probably just going to be a sprain. It's looking like he may not play this coming week against the Cowboys, which I guess is probably fine because the Eagles pretty much have the division sewed up. That's another thing to you Cowboys fans. If you really thought the Cowboys were going to win the division, you're delusional. There was no way in hell the Cowboys were winning the division over the Eagles. They're not going to have some epic fucking collapse, and we're not going to go on some epic fucking winning streak. It is what it is. Who the hell cares? Honestly, we're better where we're at because if we're the number 1 wild card, that means we're going to get to play whoever wins the NFC South, basically the shittiest team in the playoffs. So our odds are pretty good there to at least win in the wild card round. So cool your tits, bitches. Anyways, then we had the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't that much of a snooze fest, even though these teams aren't really that competitive, even though they are still in the playoff hunt because this division is horrible. But the Saints did hold off the Falcons 21-18. Andy Dalton had a pretty solid day, 11 for 17, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he wasn't asked to do a whole lot. And his receiver of choice was Shaheed with 3 receptions, 95 yards, and 1 touchdown. And it was just a boring ass game from 2 boring ass teams going nowhere. Then the Detroit Lions were at the New York Jets, and the Lions got the win. This was a back and forth battle there for a bit, but the Lions were able to hold on 20-17. Zach Wilson did play. He had a pretty decent game. He went 18 for 35, 317 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really, overall, though, the Jets are just a very shaky team, and it's not even the quarterback position that's the issue. It's just they don't really have an identity, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them fall out of playoff contention as these next couple of weeks go on. But hey, you never know what's going to happen. They have the Jaguars coming in this week, and honestly, that could go either way because the Jaguars are so up and down themselves too. So who knows what's going to happen, but the Jets suffered a pretty heartbreaking loss because there was some controversy with Saleh not calling timeouts and just letting too much time run off the clock, but that's the Jets, Then we had the Kansas City Chiefs at the Houston Texans, and this game went into overtime, and the Chiefs barely got the win. They barely beat the Texans 30-24. Now, it's hilarious because when the Cowboys barely beat the Texans last week, it was like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Chiefs barely beat the Texans, and it's like, oh my God, they're the greatest team to ever exist. And it's like, come on now. Now, don't get me wrong. This was a great game for the Chiefs. I don't hold it against them that the Texans took them into overtime because, hey, the Texans are an NFL team, and the Texans have actually played pretty well this season for a 1-12-1 team. But the Chiefs did get the overtime win, 30-24. And Patrick Mahomes, I feel like he heard the rumblings of everybody starting to maybe think Jalen Hurts, maybe he's going to be the MVP. Nah, Patrick Mahomes y'all can hold my jock strap. Watch what I do here. He went 36 for 41, 336 yards and 2 touchdowns. At one point in this game, he actually completed 20 passes in a row. Dude is just insane, and he's just carrying this team like no other. Travis Kelce also had a great game, 10 receptions, 105 yards. And then Isaiah Pacheco, he had 15 carries, 86 yards, and then he also had the game-winning touchdown in overtime. It really was a crazy game between two teams here, but big win for the Chiefs. And as I said, Patrick Mahomes, he set himself apart from for the MVP race. I feel like he was already doing that to begin with, but yesterday's game, that basically, in my opinion, sealed the motherfucking deal. I don't think there's anything anybody could do, especially now that Jalen Hurts is hurt. He may or may not play the rest of the season. They might rest him until the playoffs. So I think good old Mahomes, he's well on his way to winning himself the MVP this season. Then the afternoon games, we had the snooze fest. That was the Arizona Cardinals versus the Denver Broncos. This game was so not interesting that apparently tickets were going for $12 at this game, which says a fucking lot because Denver Broncos games usually are pretty expensive because they do have an actual legit fan base, but since they're 4-10, I'm sure Broncos fans don't really want to sit in that freezing ass cold to see the shit that they put on the field. But hey, they did get the win yesterday, 24-15. The Cardinals actually ended up losing Colt McCoy, so they ended up bringing in their third-string quarterback. I believe his last name is McSorley, so he's probably McSorley today because it sounds like he got his ass kicked by the Broncos. Latavius Murray for the Denver Broncos had 24 carries, 130 yards, and a touchdown. So it sounds like he really just carried this team yesterday. Ripon was the quarterback because Wilson missed the game due to a concussion. He went 21 for 26, 197 yards, and a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had 7 receptions and 76 yards. And it was a shockingly good game for the Broncos and yet another terrible game for the Arizona Cardinals. Then the insane ending of the day. Now, speaking of second half meltdowns, this also was a second half meltdown, but the team that had the second half meltdown actually still ended up getting the win. So we have the New England Patriots at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders came out and were just smashing the Patriots. It was 17-3 going into halftime. And then all of a sudden the third quarter hits and the Patriots start getting on a roll. And then the fourth quarter hits and they take the lead. Then the Raiders have this nice last minute drive. They're able to score the game tying touchdown. A little bit controversial because if you kind of look at it on replay, it looks like the receiver's toe is like right up against the line. But unfortunately, they didn't have a closer camera angle. So, and it was ruled a touchdown to begin with, so they couldn't overturn it. So it's kind of controversial, but hey, that's the name of the game. Sometimes the calls go your way, sometimes they don't. And honestly, it wasn't that egregious. It was extremely close. It could have been just as much in as it was out. You never know. But it got called a touchdown. Raiders would end up tying the game at 24. So, Patriots get the ball back. And there's like 30-ish, 40-ish seconds left to go. So they get a couple of first downs, and it looks like they might start rolling. And then it gets down to about 13 seconds, and so they decide to hand the ball to Ramondre Stevenson, who had a phenomenal game. He had 19 carries for 172 yards and 1 touchdown. Dude had a great game, except for this last play. So with 13 seconds left on the clock, hell, even with like 30 seconds left on the clock, it's not like the Patriots have some explosive type of offense. They actually have one of the worst offenses in the league. And it's really actually kind of hilarious to watch that they don't really have an actual play caller. And that shows because they have one of the worst offenses in the league. So one would have thought that when they got the ball back, they would have just knelt down and just gone into overtime because it was tied. And with 13 seconds left to go, you really and they weren't even in field goal range. Yes, it was possible. You could have done something, but they didn't. Instead, they did snap the ball, handed the ball off to Ramondre Stevenson, and he actually got a good run. He got a good gain. He, as a matter of fact, got in the field goal position. But unfortunately, he got a little too stupid, and he decided to lateral the ball behind him. Then the guy he laterals the ball to ends up tossing the ball behind him. But unfortunately, when he laterals the ball and tosses it, he tosses it to Chandler Jones, who is no longer in a New England Patriots uniform. He used to be a New England Patriot, but now he's a Las Vegas Raider. And this dude intercepts the ball, and there's nobody in front of him except Mac fucking Jones. Now, I know Mac's name is Mac, and one would think, oh, Mac, that's a Mac truck. Nah, Mac got trucked by Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones, it's always funny to see when a defensive player actually gets a shot on a quarterback because you know in their brain, if they get the shot, they're taking the shot. And he did that to Mac Jones. Mac Jones kind of gets in this little crouching position to try and attempt to stop this guy from running in the end zone. And what happens? Chandler Jones just sticks his motherfucking hand out, pushes Mac Jones down like the little bitch he is, says, get the fuck up out of my way, runs in for the game-winning touchdown. It was one of the... This is how the Raiders season has been all fucking season. They can't just like win a game where they're like killing it. They have to win on heart attack plays like this or lose on heart attack plays like this. Fortunately for them, they were on the opposite side and they got to see the win and feel the excitement of this insane stupidity. Like, I could not believe that this happened on a Bill Belichick coach team, because what Bill Belichick is always known for is being like the most well put together and situational football. They know every fucking situation. He puts them through every situation, every random, nonsensical thing you could think of. He does it because he wants you to be ready for any fucking thing. Patriots weren't ready for this shit. And it was literally one of the dumbest plays you'll ever see in NFL history, but good for the Raiders and hilarious to see Mac Jones turn into a new meme because literally watching him get trucked over by Chandler Jones was insanely hilarious. And I'm not even going to lie. I have seen the replay of that play I countless times today. Has not got old, and I laugh every time I see it. Just so thank you for providing me with that amazing laugh that I'm probably going to have for the rest of the season, hell, for the rest of the time, because it's going to be difficult to top that kind of an ending. But Derek Carr had a solid game. He went 20 for 38, 231 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And hey, Raiders walking away with a big, big win, and Patriots just falling further away from the playoffs. Then the Tennessee Titans were at the Los Angeles Chargers. Very, very close game. Chargers eked by on this one, 17-14. Justin Herbert had yet another phenomenal game. Now, he did have 2 interceptions, so that obviously not a good thing. But on the last drive, he did what he needed to do, and that's when it counted the most. Made a huge, beautiful pass and to set them up in field goal position to walk away with the win that they really needed. Titans are just circling the drain right now. Hell, Derrick Henry had yet another good game. 21 carries, 104 yards, and 1 touchdown, but they still lost. This offense is really bad. And with the Jaguars surging up and the Titans surging down, there's a possibility that the Titans might end up losing grasp on this division, and the Jaguars could potentially sneak in and take that division. Chargers, good for them. This is another really 2 good wins in a row. You know, they beat the Dolphins last week. They beat the Titans this week. 2 legit teams with good defenses, and they were really tested, really challenged, and they stepped it up and were able to overcome the mistakes that they've made. And they are rolling and look like they may grab that last wild card spot into the playoffs. Then the final afternoon game was another second half meltdown, and that was the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a crazy game this was, because, you know, it started out with the Buccaneers shockingly looking really good. They went into halftime up 17-3. And so, I mean, they looked really good. Solid on offense, defense. Joe Burrow, he was having a bad game. And the Bengals really weren't able to get anything going offensively at all. But then all of a sudden, they come out in the second half and they really turned it around. And the Bengals just went on a scoring frenzy against the Bucs and wound up trouncing the Bucs 34-23. And so there were a lot of firsts for Tom Brady in this one. I mean, we all know that Tom Brady basically owns every single record you possibly could own in this league, just because A, he's been around forever, and then B, he's great. So of course you're going to own a lot of records, but now he owns a few more. So for the first time in his career ever, his team blew a 17-point lead. Also for the first time in his career ever, he had 4 turnovers. And then also for the first time in his career ever, he's a part of a team that has at least 8 losses on the season. So he's got a lot of firsts, just like Bill Belichick had that horrible first and in the end of that Raiders game there. But I mean, even though statistics-wise, Brady didn't have that horrible game, he went 30 for 44, 312 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Those 4 turnovers were costly, and he wasn't the only one turning over the ball. There was other fumbles, and it was just so weird to see that this insane collapse from the Buccaneers. And I mean, it was against a good team. The Bengals, excellent team. They are rolling right now. They are 10-4, and they look like the team you really don't want to face. But the Buccaneers are looking like they're just reeling, and lucky for them, they're in a horrible division, because their chances are they're going to just make the playoffs only because out of the 4 teams in the NFC South, they're the best. So yeah, it was not a good game from the Bucs, but an excellent game, or excellent second half from the Bengals. And then rounding out Sunday, we had Sunday Night Football with the New York Giants at the Washington Commanders. This was a total snooze fest. The Giants ended up getting the win 20-12. I really couldn't tell you how the Giants got the win, because this was one of those games. It was kind of similar to that Cleveland-Baltimore game, where it was like it felt like things were happening, but nothing was really happening. And then the Commanders had a chance at the end to tie it up. And, there were a couple controversial calls with the refs there, but, it's always stupid to me to bitch and complain about the refs. The first one was one of the receivers. He was lined up. He wasn't lined up correctly, and it cost them 5 yards. And it took back a touchdown because they did actually score on that play, but it was taken away because of the penalty. So it backed them up. And a lot of people are pointing out that, yes, he said that he asked the ref if he's standing in the right place. And if you look at the replay, yes, it looks like he asked him, and it looks like the ref was like, yes, you're fine. And then he just literally threw the flag. But at the end of the day, it's not on the ref to know where you're standing. It's on you to know where you're standing. I mean, that's what you're trained to do every single week. I get it. It's pissed off, and in the moment, you had a touchdown taken away. So I got that. And then on the following play, there was an obvious pass interference call. I mean, it was obvious. The dude was bear hugged. He couldn't even lift his arms up or jump. So yes, that was obvious. But in my opinion, the way I've always wanted the game played is the less officiating, the better. But especially towards the end of games, I feel like I never want it to come down to the refs throw the pass interference call, and then it just turns. It's just stupid. And like I said, there were plenty of chances in the game for Washington to take the lead, and they could have, because the Giants were just atrocious. I don't even know how the Giants were able to score 20 points, but they certainly did. I know one of them was because their defense, Kayvon Thibodeau, he had an excellent game for them last night. So defensively, Giants looked great, but offensively, I can't even recall anything that they did. And then on the Commanders side of things, Taylor Heineke had a pretty decent game, 17 for 29, 249 yards and a touchdown. And then Jahan Dotson, he had 4 receptions, 105 yards and a touchdown. And tonight's Monday Night Football matchup is the Los Angeles Rams at the Green Bay Packers. Right now, the Packers are a 7.5-point favorite. The Rams basically have nobody in their starting roles playing tonight. Baker Mayfield, this is going to be his second game as a Ram. It's supposed to be freezing ass cold in Green Bay, as it normally is this time of year, and the Packers have no issues playing in that, including Aaron Rodgers. As a matter of fact, they like playing in that. Granted, Baker Mayfield did spend his entire career in Cleveland, so it's not like he didn't play in the cold himself, so I don't feel like that's going to affect him. But the rest of the team surrounding him is not that good. Green Bay's not that good either, but I think they're better than the Rams. And Aaron Rodgers has finally found some a spark with Christian Watson, so I just kind of feel like they're going to keep it going tonight. And I feel like the Packers are actually going to get a pretty good win. I hesitate to say that because every time I've picked them to have a decent win, they either lose it or just barely win. But I think they're going to get a pretty solid win tonight, 28-13. Now moving on to the Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings for this week. We had a little bit of shakeup here. We do have a new addition at the bottom portion of it. We do have a new number 1 as well, but not a whole lot of shakeup. It's pretty much a mishmash of the same teams, just kind of in different order now, because we have a couple of teams who are on some losing streaks, but then we also have a couple of different teams on some winning streaks. So let's kick it off with the new number 1 this week on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings. I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Overall record of 19-10. They did just lose, but they are coming off of a 7-game winning streak. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games, and they are just rocking and rolling right now. This past week, they got wins against the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks, and not only did they beat the Bucks, they smashed the Bucks. Granted, Giannis Antetokounmpo did not play in that game, but hey, I don't care. Bucks are still a damn good team, even without Giannis. Beating them and kicking them to the curb, that's a big win. And then they lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And as I continue to say about the Grizzlies, it's all about Ja, who is averaging 26.7 points per game. They lead the league in rebounds. Adams is just owning the paint, and the Grizzlies, they're just getting better as the season rolls on. Then at number 2 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. Overall record of 21-8. They are 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week, they got wins against the Golden State Warriors and the Utah Jazz and lost to the Memphis Grizzlies. This team is just so rock solid. They're great defensively. They know how to shoot. What Giannis is playing at an MVP level. And they just get better as the season rolls on. And it's funny because it feels like nobody's really talking about them, but I also feel like it's business as usual with the Bucks. So they don't give a fuck if anybody credits them. They won an NBA championship. They've done it before. I wouldn't put it past them to do it again this year. Then at number 3 on my top 10 NBA power rankings, I'm shocked that this team has made it this high. Now they have the talent to do what they're doing. And they are actually on a roll right now, and their whiny crybaby players have not started their periods yet. So I have the Brooklyn Nets at number 3 right now. They're 19-12 on the season, and they are on a 6-game winning streak, 9-1 in their last 10 games. This past week they beat Washington, Toronto, and Detroit. It's mostly all about Kevin Durant, though. This dude is just balling uncontrollably, averaging 30.4 points per game. Kyrie Irving had a huge game winner the other night, so the vaginas aren't bleeding quite yet. If the Nets are able to keep this pace, they could actually be a competitive team this year. So you guys see the potential in what you have. Especially with Kevin Durant. Dude is a baller. He has not lost a step at all. If he stays healthy, look out for the Nets. But they're playing great basketball right now. Then at number 4 on my top 10 NBA power rankings, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Overall record of 20-11. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. This past week they lost to the San Antonio Spurs, but won against the Dallas Mavericks twice, and then beat the Pacers as well. So when you beat the Luka Doncic-led Mavericks twice, and the Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell has just been balling uncontrollably. He has really made this Cavs team a very lethal team. Then at number 5 on my top 10 NBA power rankings, moving up this week as well, the Philadelphia 76ers. Overall record of 16-12. They are on a 4-game winning streak. They are 7-3 in their last 10 games. They got wins this week against the Kings and the Golden State Warriors. And Joel Embiid, man, the guy is having yet another phenomenal season as well. And Harden's back. He also had he's been getting better with each and every game. And so have the 76ers, and they still have a couple of guys that need to come back from injury. So this team, once we get to the halfway point of the season this year, you might want to look out for the 76ers being one of the top teams out east if they're able to keep up this pace of play. Then at number 6 on my top 10 NBA power rankings, I have the Boston Celtics. They have taken a little bit of a tumble this week. Actually, over the last couple of weeks, they're 22-9 overall in the season, but they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. This past week, they lost to the Clippers and the Orlando Magic twice, which is just not good. They actually got clowned by the Orlando Magic, and that's not good because the Magic are awful. But they, of course, beat the Lakers because everybody fucking beats the Lakers these days, it feels like. But the Celtics, they've been falling off the last couple of weeks, but still, solid team. It's going to happen. You're going to have a couple of fall-offs, and that's just what's going on right now. I expect them to pick it right back up here in the next week or two. Then at number 7 on my top 10 NBA power rankings, I have the Denver Nuggets. Overall record of 18-11, 6-4 in their last 10 games. This past week, they got wins against Washington and Charlotte and lost to the Lakers, which was an absolute shock. I don't know how the Lakers were able to dominate them. And it was domination. It was a shocking domination from the Lakers. But yeah, that must have been some type of fluke game. But Nikola Jokic, that's what he's all about for the Nuggets. Dude even had a career high in rebounds just the other night, which is insane because it feels like he's scoring and rebounding at an insane pace. As a matter of fact, the pace he's at right now can only be compared to Wilt Chamberlain, which is insane because if you know about Wilt Chamberlain, you know the dude was one of the most dominating basketball players ever. And so to be put in the same breath of Wilt Chamberlain says a fucking lot. And I mean, just listen to this stat line Jokic had against Charlotte the other night. 40 points, 27 rebounds, which was a career high for him, 10 assists. That is his 5th triple-double of the season. 81st of his career. So Nikola Jokic, he's once again making another case for MVP. Then at number 8 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, tumbling really far down this week with the New Orleans Pelicans. They were my number 1 team last week just because they were on a win streak, but now they are on a losing streak. They are 18-11 on the season. They've lost all their games this week. They're on a 3-game losing streak. They lost to Utah twice and Phoenix, but they are 7-3 in their last 10 games. And I mean, as I said, with the Celtics, you're going to have lulls. And the Pelicans, I don't know if they're in their championship pedigree, but they are. Zion is looking really damn good. Hopefully he's able to avoid any type of serious injuries this year because that guy is finally panning out to be what we all expected him to be. But Pelicans, they are in a 3-game losing streak, but I don't expect them to really fall off. As a matter of fact, I expect them to be competitive in the Western Conference all season long. Then at number 9 on my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings are the Phoenix Suns, overall record of 18-12. Now they are 4-6 in their last 10 games, but they have finally started to get a winning streak going after that big losing streak they'd taken over the last couple of weeks. They did lose to Houston earlier in this week in the week, but they got wins against the Clippers and the Pelicans. And Devin Booker went off against the Pelicans. He had a 58-point game. Devin Booker just doing what he do. He's another kind of like silent guy where like you hear about him, but like nobody usually discusses him for MVP. And the guy just drops dimes, and he's dropping 58 points, and he had another 50-point game just 2 weeks ago. So Devin Booker is just getting better as he ages. And then rounding out my Tropp 10 NBA Power Rankings, a new team has emerged this week, and that would be the New York Knicks. Overall record of 17-3, and the reason why they made the Tropp 10 this week is because they do currently have the longest winning streak in the league at 7 wins, and they are 8-2 in their last 10 games. But this team has really dominated in this winning streak here. I mean, they started off the season kind of, nobody really cared. It's the Knicks doing Knicks things. But then all of a sudden, they've really turned it on. This week, they beat Chicago twice, and then the Indiana Pacers. Julius Randle, this guy is, ever since he was traded away, I mean, he was actually good for the Lakers as well. But, he gets traded away from the Lakers. He goes to the Knicks, and he has been so consistent throughout his career with the Knicks. He's still doing it big. But the silent assassin for this team who's really been doing it big for them is Jalen Brunson. This guy's scrappy. Really, this whole team is scrappy. They are very aggressive, and they give no fucks. So watch out for the Knicks. I don't know if they're a legit team. But I felt like I had to put them in at least a Tropp 10 this week just because, 7-game winning streak, 8-2 in their last 10 games. That's really difficult to deny. And they're just playing excellent basketball right now. And then the last bit of basketball news, stop me if you've heard this one before, but Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers, he's injured yet again. Right foot injury, don't really know the extent of it. They didn't really say what it was, but it's looking like he's going to be missing at least the next month. So, yeah, I knew that was going to happen when I was rattling off all the great games he was having over the last month. I think I actually said it the last episode or maybe 2 episodes ago that I think I said it definitely last week. I was just waiting on when Anthony Davis is going to get injured, and whoop. There it is. He's going to be out at least, they're saying week by week or a couple weeks, but my guess is I've read a month in certain areas, and then some places say 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll just put it at a month. Regardless, Anthony Davis is going to be missing the time, and the Lakers are going to suck even more. So yeah, there's that to look forward to. The Lakers still fucking suck. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of the week of sports, and I will talk to you fools on Wednesday.